Nick, good to have you on.
Thank you for having me. So the career path starts to get laid upon you around 16 years of age, 15, 16 years of age in our schooling system. And I had a passion for science. I enjoyed maths. I enjoyed design. So I suppose I thought about using the sciences because I found them quite inspiring. And then my godfather was a mixed vet back in the day. So in the 80s and 90s, in the heyday of mixed vetting. And I did some work experience with him. My sister who's 4 years older, she was interested in becoming a vet, but unfortunately she didn't make it through the kind of preliminary phases. And I just thought, well, I could be a vet. I could do that. I'd enjoy that. And so off I went, and I was really lucky. A lot of people aren't, I understand that. And I got through the interview phases. I got given an offer. I was asked to take a year out to mature, which was perfect. And I got my grades. And then 16, 17 years of practice now is coming to an end.
So the university told you to take a break?
Yeah, so I interviewed in two places. I interviewed at Bristol and Liverpool. I think there was only 5 universities available in 98 when I was applying, 97, 98. And Bristol, the interview was terrible. They I don't know, they gave me a few challenging, I suppose personally challenging questions immediately, and that just put me on the back foot, and I didn't express who I was and I suppose my character and my enthusiasm, because I was phased by the interview. Whereas Liverpool, they were incredibly amiable and were asking about my sister and her experiences of UCAS and universities, and that just made me relax. And then they went into more technical questions, but because I was relaxed, I handled them a lot better, and they offered me a place. But they said, don't come this year, come next year. So I was lucky enough to have a deferred place. So I got the summer and winter off. Workload.
Yeah.
Balancing workload with finding a big city. But yeah, I suppose I think I learned how to learn pretty well at school. I was quite dyslexic as a young child, and they put me aside and put me through a process of refining how I learned, and I think that gave me a really good way of learning. So if I didn't perhaps do as much as I should have done through the course time, I was able to consolidate my learning quite well, and I got through uni in 5 years. Probably realizing that I should have concentrated harder at uni. So
why do you say that?
Came around to what I just said came around to bite me in the arse, I suppose, because when I went out into the practice world, I don't think I was fully aware of all the background I should have had and the base knowledge. But what I did do is learn really quickly on the job. I was really lucky in my first job, 3 years in a practice in Cheshire. And I was just thrown in. It was the days of kind of learning, kind of saying you mentored new grads, but really just showing them once and then off they went on their own. So I unfortunately made lots of mistakes, and I learned by my mistakes, but I've rarely committed the same mistake twice. So I learned. I think one of your questions in the preamble before we did this was, did you learn more in practice? And I think I learned probably the same again, if not more, than what I learned at uni. I couldn't have done it without the base that uni provided me. And I remember my tutors and rotation groups and things like that fondly. And some of the lecturers were great. But I think I learned, most of what I do on the job. Yeah, good. I think as to, well, I was lucky I went to Liverpool, so that definitely developed me as a person and made me grow up, showed me another side to life that I hadn't really experienced, so a big city. And then yeah, the learning side of stuff provided everything you needed. And if I concentrated a bit harder, I would have thought, I would think I would have been pretty well prepared. I think they seem to come out, or the guys, the new grads I meet these days, and even more so in the last, say, 5 years, are coming out, I think, a bit better prepared. And well, even, I mean, through the new grads we've met through, I did a lot of interviewing, say, 5 years ago to 3 years ago. And so I met people that we didn't take and we did take, and yeah, they seemed pretty on it. And the new grads we did take on, obviously, probably the best we interviewed. They have flown. You know, what they're doing at year 2 and year 3 of practice is probably where I was at year 7, and they just seem to have I think, yeah, the structure of the courses seems to have changed, doesn't it? The dynamic learning, rather than I think our uni days, and you were the same year, Lennon, so you may or may not agree, it was quite school and A-level structured. So it was just a term of work, do your exams, another term of work, do your exams. And again, like I said, I was able to learn how to do those exams, and I think perhaps with the continued coursework, it would have made everyone try a bit harder all through the year, and then perhaps develop in a different way. Yeah, done 16, 17 years of farm work, and I've been through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 5 or 6 practices, but 2 of those I spent a vast majority of my time at. So you get a client group that come to rely on you, and I loved it. I loved those relationships, and I loved the families that I became part of. And that was what I enjoyed. Again, so in 16, I segued into being a vet. At the end of vet, I segued into being farm only. I did a little tiny bit of equine because that was the first job. But after a year, it changed to farm. Farm at uni grabbed me, and I really enjoyed it. A lot to do with the lecturers, but also to do with the work. You know, it's a bit more active, outdoorsy. And I grew up in the countryside. I understood farm, I understood that way of life, and yeah, it's all I ever really wanted to do. I didn't want to do small. I enjoyed the surgery side of small, but everyone does. But then I do a lot of farm surgery now. So, but yeah, it was just always farm. But then, fascinatingly, that my indifference to, I suppose, personal contact with a lot of those clients is what's finished it for me, partly. So I went into the wrong sector, I would say, maybe. Okay. I perhaps wouldn't be leaving the vet sector if I'd gone into a different portion of it. But it's done me 17 years, so I can't complain. I don't think you can say what the public perception is of the veterinary profession, because it's all very personal, isn't it? So their impression is, if they're a pet owner, they think the whole system's ripping them off, but they particularly like individual vets, and they will go back to those vets and try and go to that practice to get that vet, and if they don't, they'll get another. With farming, they form very strong bonds to the practice again, and in particular individuals. But then again, there's a slight, I don't know, contempt for vets, I suppose, in the farm world, because they've profiteered at farms for a long time, and then in the last 15 or 10 years, the tables have really turned, so margins have been smashed, and professional time isn't charged for properly, and it's been really challenging. And I think going back to the small animal side of stuff, where people absolutely adore their small animal vet and completely devote their troubles to them and use them as a consort for all sorts of things, you know, as well as mental health and someone to talk to. They have a bit of a, not a fear, but a contempt again for the system that seems to overcharge. But when you talk about that, it's evident that it doesn't really. It's a costly ship to run, isn't it, a vet practice, whether it's farm or small. But so I've done my 17 years of farm vet practice. I have thoroughly enjoyed it, and I totally appreciate that farmers are wonderful. They do a great job. They work harder than anyone else. But over the last 2 years, my journey through facing the ecological crisis that humanity faces, and also, I suppose, not farmers do a wonderful job. I'm only really involved in animal ag rather than arable ag, but I just see the same old mistakes, and I see suffering everywhere I go, and yeah, I'm just moving away from animal agriculture because I can't stomach it anymore. I've tried my best, and we've made huge changes in the level of farming and targets and efficiency and welfare, but I still don't think it's good enough. So it's going to be an interesting conversation I have with my clients that I've known for 9 years, because I handed my notice in this week and I've got 2 months to work, and I'm essentially turning my back on them. But I do appreciate that they do a job that is requested of them, and they do their best. But unfortunately, when you're too close to a problem, often you start to fail to notice the detail, and I can't stop looking at that detail. So I think my time is done. So I'm going to make plant milk, because I think the future is a plant-based, majority plant-based future. So generally across the profession, and not speaking personally, well, no, actually, and speaking personally, of course, it's a hard job. I suppose a lot of vets, when they're poised at, again, when I go back to 16, are poised at medicine, veterinary, or dentistry, I suppose. Not everyone would want any of those, but the vets go down the vet route because they got compassion and they want to do something, and maybe they prefer private practice than NHS and so on. But all of a sudden you're doing the same kind of hours that doctors do, but for a lot less money, and just the same amount of commitment and concern and emotional involvement, and it just burns people out. I've been burnt out. A year and a half ago, I went part-time just because but then I was disagreeing with my job as well, disagreeing with my job and my employers. My wife is a vet. She's gone down to 2 days a week because of COVID, but she's now working. She leaves the house at 7:45 and gets back at 9:30, 10 o'clock, 2 days a week now. And she should be home by about 7:30. She'll probably have to add another half day to that, and she's meant to be a part-time worker. And you can't put it down, especially as a farm vet. You can't put it down. Your phone is always ringing. You are often on call. It sounds like I'm whinging, but it's just a hard job, and that burns people out. I think the level of expectation by practices hasn't considered, perhaps is more so now, considering mental health, because it's private sector, it's up to companies. And then personally, lastly, the first practice I worked in, I was just learning the ropes, and it seemed like a good boss dynamic. They got it all, not many people were disgruntled. The second main place I worked at, I didn't get along with the boss, so I left that one after 2 years. And then the last one, I enjoyed it for about 5 years, and then I just realized that the bosses were rudderless, and they were taking us down roads that they couldn't map out, and I tried to engage with them on it, but they just withdrew further. So I found, in summary, management often in veterinary practices is pretty poor. And there's this big fear of corporate practices. So some of the small animal ones will be recognizable, but not so much in farm. But what's wrong with it? It offers structure, and it offers support and growth, but yeah, you don't have the potential end of practice ownership at the end. But I'm not a big fear of those organized ones. And my wife has worked in a couple that she's been quite happy in, because she's been part-time and she knows where the goalposts are and the sidelines and so on. But yeah, it's not right for everyone. And yourself, starting your own practice, you're trying to create a working environment that's different, and that's one of our mantras in our new plant milk business, is to reinvent business and make it regenerative rather than sustainable or destructive, which unfortunately a lot of management groups are. No, I mean, we had a lecturer commit suicide just after we left uni, and that's to do with access to dangerous drugs, isn't it? If if you gave everyone access to what we have access to, and depression hits, then it's a very easy option and decision. So, and again, firearms and whatnot for farm animal and farmers. That's probably why they're top of the tree. But personally, I don't know. I think all my colleagues have had frustrations, and I've got colleagues that are so like contemporaries that are practice owners that then sold out to a corporate and are now employed. So they've gone from being business owners to employees again. And I've got part-time friends that have just wanted to be good career vets, and I've got vets that never wanted to be vets even after uni, 2 of those, and they are still struggling through, and still looking to exit but haven't exited. And do I know any others? I don't know anyone that's left yet, interestingly, but I've got a real breadth. But yeah, everyone's had their lows, definitely, through those careers, but then everyone does, I think.
That's not uncommon for any career, really.
Yeah, the conversation around mental health is really encouragingly increasing, isn't it? So. I mean, it's a lot of what we do is private practice and to a degree corporate now. And I think the corporates have got it right. They have well-being strands, they have mental health managers and so on, and mentors. So yeah, just getting in there and communicating and talking and recognizing what people do for companies as well. I don't think the work I've ever done and the effort I've put in has ever been appreciated. But maybe that's just my career path, as it were, and others are different. But it was definitely, from a farm perspective, it's always been quite a bravado profession because of farmers and because of colleagues, you know. Just making sure there's support networks and frameworks to catch people.
I think that's a very good point, really. Mentorship, to have someone that you actually, who are sort of taking care of you and you report to, that may be quite helpful, really, because
ensuring that structure is written into a business plan or a company policy. Not just lip service to it and sending the odd person to a conference. It's practicing it, isn't it? I'm going to turn the question around on the interviewer here. What do you see is the future for animal agriculture before we consider what veterinary input and medicines will have in that, I suppose?
Very, very good question.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Now, I think veterinary is poised to continue to lead that and develop more efficiency and less antibiotic usage and better welfare. But ultimately, I think as a responsible profession, we should also be driving attitude change towards diet and consumption. And they're two very different things. So consumption on a grand scale on all foods, but also, and wastage, but also what foods we put in our diet. And I just think, I think if we shave down our animal-derived protein source, and we reduce our farming platform and adapt it to more regenerative techniques, then what's left could be a really interesting thing. And I'm not about to out for the abolition of animal agriculture because it's not realistic, but I think people need to understand what they're eating and what the process is to that point. And I think it's been very much clouded and behind closed doors. I don't think the vast majority of people, even a lot of vets that are involved in animal agriculture, would understand what's happened to get that egg or that glass of milk or that slab of meat to your table, or the cheese or the butter or the yogurt or the pepperami or every little snack. It has involvement with animal agriculture, and that's been wonderful for GDP and growth and scale of these businesses, but it's out of control. So, and then how veterinary will be involved in that? I think the recent pandemic, and if you scratch the surface on where pandemics have come from over the last 200-300 years, it's all mass agriculture or farmed animal, and I'm not just saying cows, pigs, chickens, whatever. It's other things like civet cats and camels and monkeys, but they've all come from farmed animal, and we can't carry on like this. So we need to seriously address the biosecurity and biocontainment around herds and groups of animals. We need to reduce the intensity and the misery that they live in. Look what happened through lockdown to the human population. You put us all in our flats and our cities, and things start to go wrong. And yeah, I think society breakdown on a small scale that we've seen is a good rehearsal of what might be coming. And so maybe a reduced animal agriculture sector will represent reduced suffering and better quality and higher prices and less antibiotic usage, less steroid usage, you know. Well, no steroid usage. I think going back to organics, I think the structure of organics versus conventional should be leveled, if not reversed. So why is organic the price prohibitive produce out there when it's the solution? Why is the most destructive food substances the cheapest? You know, why is there such subsidy in destructive industries that are all linked to further destructive industries? But now we're going a bit deep, aren't we? We got away from veterinary. But yeah, the vets can guide. But there needs to be a mind shift change in the vets as well, I think, because the vets are very, in the same way that the farming community are very defensive of what they do, because they've always done it and they've done their best at it, and they've improved things a great deal. But I think just opening conversations with people that are going to implement change.
That is certainly very, very profound, and yeah, thanks for sharing that. Certainly, you know, as vets, we learn what we learn from vet college, and you do not know anything different unless you start exploring other avenues and other thoughts and other beliefs and other philosophies. So yeah, that was a very good point.
Yeah, I like it. I'm sad. I'm sad to be leaving it to a degree, but then for every moment I think, oh, I'll miss picking up a scalpel, or I'll miss giving a good bit of advice that has changed the outcome or the prospects for a group of animals, and I'll miss the animals as well. I really will. But for every moment I have like that, there's 9 or 10 that I just, yeah. Whether it's a look, whether it's a feeling, whether it's an action, I won't miss that at all. But yeah, I think one of your questions was what do people think of vets? And I've you know, for 20 years I've said I'm going to be a vet, or I'm a vet, and people's faces light up and they appreciate the profession, and I suppose they appreciate the compassion that you must have. And I'll miss that. But I can always say I was a vet. But the last thing I said there about the compassion is a thing I find quite interesting, that people, it's the cognitive dissonance side of stuff again, going back to the previous question, that they perceive farm vets as compassionate people for the animals that they want to eat. And it's like, well, that's such an oxymoronic kind of statement, isn't it? That I want you to kill and scare the shit and kill out of that animal, and then I'll eat it, but I want you to have compassion while you're putting it through that miserable growth phase. And it's just funny, isn't it? So I look forward to being able to have those discussions more openly, and talk about why I've changed and what I do now, and see whether it can inspire some change or inspire some thought. I will support and grow any interests that the children have. I think they should be independently minded and they should do what they want to do, but I'll make sure that they have all the options presented to them in our bizarre kind of system where we decide at mid-childhood that what you're going to do for the rest of your life. So I don't know. Yeah, I'll definitely encourage them if they want to be a vet. I think, honestly, I think I'm going to push them towards creativity as well. I think we stamp out creativity and problem solving in our schooling years, and they're such an inspiration, aren't they, when they're little kids, and then they become us.
Yeah.
So wouldn't it be nice if they could hold on to that creativity and then use that in a scientific career or in a business career? You know what I mean? Why are the arts and sciences so independent of each other?
That is very, very true. And I mean, just 2 points to say about that. I've heard the saying before, that adults are deteriorated children, which
Yeah.
rings true. And back to vet medicine, and very interestingly, when I looked at the definition of veterinary medicine, it says that it is a science and art of treating animals. So, it does say that it's supposed to be a science and an art, but I do understand when you say that we have gone a lot sciencey based and we may have lost, or the art side of things may have been misguided or just not as focused to actually realize what exactly are we doing, rather than just the show me the proof, show me the evidence sort of method of
You took me back 17 years there, because when I first started work, I would gladly or glibly ride around the countryside telling people that I'd learned the art of veterinary science in the first kind of 3-6 months, which was basically just convincing them you knew what you're talking about. And but that wasn't art, I don't think, but it was definitely acting. But, I think the general mindset of a vet is very different now from when we decided to become vets. Interestingly, might be interesting to see what the profession is like for the people that are qualifying now in 15 years, because I think it will probably be as equally as different. And that should be borne in mind when choosing career path, isn't it?
Definitely.
The lifelong commitment, but people's careers can evolve within that as well. In fact, I've known a lot of people that have moved out of practice and into industry to try and get more of a 9 to 5, but still be involved in things that they're passionate about, and perhaps go into policy and policy change. So that's, I suppose, an exit, but retaining the skills and the passion for it. I don't know. I can't condemn. You can tell from the interview how wordy I am, and I can't condense everything I just said into 3 words. Well, compassion would be in there. Misguided would be in there, and enjoyable would be in there.
Thank you very much.
Very different words, yeah.
Thank you very much, Nick, for that. That was